All right, we are live now.
Okay. Um, cool. So Andrew is out of the country, so I'll be chairing the meeting today. First time chairing a meeting in this group, so please let me know if I forget something. I think we usually start by approving the minutes, and Donna is our new secretary, so she's going to be taking minutes. Thank you, Donna. So can I get a motion to approve the previous minutes?
So moved. Second.
Who's that?
Esra, seconded. All right, all in favor, raise your hands. All right, that is all the voting members, I believe. So the only, so the motion passes, Donna. So the only really new topic we have outside of the project report is something Andrew brought up in an email about the operating budget. So the county did give us an extension on submitting our budget since we didn't meet in December. And unfortunately, Andrew can't be here today. And Darcy told me last minute that she couldn't be here today. I don't have a budget report to look at the sort of the most recent state of things. I think would probably help this discussion, but at least we can talk about the ideas that were brought up in that message, which were arts and community awards and potentially increasing that. Adding budget to pay local artist assistants for some of our bigger SPLOST projects. And one reason I wanted to look at what our current budget is kind of around some other things of, could we, do some things like the website is really the one that comes to mind. Does that need to stay in this fiscal current year's budget, or do we need to plan to roll that to the next fiscal year budget? I'm thinking that is probably necessary. I don't know.
I think we're about at 13,000 for
Right.
the rest of the fiscal year. I don't have the most
Right.
recent one in front of me, but that's about where we are, and that's to last us into the end of June.
Right. So we have so 4,000 of that will confirmed that's for Arts and Community Awards, which we that's later on the agenda, but we are able to approve the two awards that we're able to fund right now. So that will be moving down the number to 9,500. So then I guess that really leaves us 9,500 for the rest of the fiscal year. The latest update I had in the minutes about this year's fiscal budget was from September, and that's when we were talking about, we had actually tabled a discussion around can we approve or should we approve paying an artist assistant for the Clayton Street project in this spring. So we tabled that. We haven't brought that discussion back up, and I'm not sure we can without having, just having that definitely accurate budget report. So maybe we need to just talk about that next month. But the items that we had talked about being in that like 1,300 and change were Arts and Community Awards, website, poet laureate, provisionally an artist assistant, and then any miscellaneous. And so, yeah, so I guess really the only relevant thing for talking about increases to next year's fiscal budget is really that website. That's something that we are talking about in our outreach meetings. We pushed our meeting from this week to next week. I haven't gotten an update from Helen. I don't know if Helen is wanting to talk about it right now on the spot.
Well, I can't say that I have had conversations with one graphic art company, and it seems like, we were thinking on the order of $5,000 to $10,000 in that range is what we're probably looking at for an overhaul of the website. And that, in talking to other folks, that seems to be reasonable. And so I would say it kind of depends on how quickly we get we solicit proposals and make a decision around that. And I guess I did have a question for Tatiana. Is I guess if we go through the purchase order route and we're under $10,000, we can get 3 estimates and choose one?
Are
You're
you
muted.
muted?
I can't hear you.
Sorry. I believe that's yes, 3 bids is what we need to fulfill that. Um, we haven't really dealt with the bid process too much for our operation, so this would be a first, I think. Stephanie, do you have any? It's just three competing bids. Oh, you're muted.
Muted.
Everyone's
It's a
muted.
disease.
We're very muted this meeting. That sounds right to me. We can double check that too. But if it's under 10,000, 3 bids, and then you basically select the bid that is the cheapest and meets the requirements the best, I guess. Yeah. And your time, you also got to have like a time thing in there. Like,
Yeah.
can this group complete the project by the end of the time you need? Like that might be based on the fiscal year. So like that's going to also narrow your field a little bit too.
Plus, we spread it over 2 fiscal
This is true.
sessions.
That in your RFP. Yeah.
The other question is, can we select based on qualifications, or do we have to take the lowest bid?
You're going to probably have to take the lowest bid. That's like classic government style. And like that's what I mean by like sometimes that is like this has they meet your time. Like you might the lowest bid might be able to be like, oh, we can't finish this project till 2024, and you're like, oh, we definitely have to have the new website by 23. So that helps, narrow the field for you. But typically, it's the lowest bidder.
And that's a have to have, or is that is that a hard rule?
I mean, kind of why we put things out
It pretty much is. Okay.
Yeah, any service over $1,000, and under 10.
Hmm. So on that, if we are assuming an average of 7, if it's somewhere between 5 and 10, yeah, I don't know if it would make sense to maybe spread it out over the 2 fiscal years. I will say when we last talked about approving the funds for Arts and Community Awards, which we've just approved those proposals. Tatiana will be reaching out this week. The last thing we had talked about was just looking at how the operating budget was getting a little lean. We were basically going to table and say like, okay, we're gonna approve 2 now, and then we'll see whether we can do 1 or 2 in this spring. And not that we need to necessarily decide that right now, but doing 2 and then also the website, and then also having funds for other things that might come up, like that Clayton Street artist assistant would be getting pretty close to the cap. And then Tatiana, I saw you put in the chat there, you paid the poet laureate, so the next payment will come in the 23 fiscal year. Can you repeat what number that is for that payment?
It's 1,000. It's 2,000 total, $1,000 each year, each fiscal year. So he won't be paid again until this coming August, which will put us in next fiscal year.
And clarity on that too for this fiscal year, would we need to, when we're talking about the budget for the poet laureate, is it really just that stipend, or is there also other event expenses that would need to come from our operating budget?
That's a good question. He is his contract allots for $1,500 for like a project budget. Let's say if he wanted to do an event that needed a certain type of material, or he wanted to order books to distribute or something like that. And he hasn't spent anything thus far.
So it could happen this fiscal year, or it could happen next
But
fiscal
it's
year. We just
also
don't
at
know.
our discretion and approval. So if he were to, he needs to say, I need X amount of dollars for this. And if we need to say like, oh, we can only do
Mhm.
X amount this fiscal year and X amount next fiscal year. So we have some control there, but that is what his project allowance is, or materials allowance, or whatever you want to call that.
Okay, that's helpful. I'm sure that's in some minutes somewhere, but I didn't know where that was. Hmm. Okay. Well, Helen, do you have any leanings towards should we try to split it between the two or just push it to next year?
You know, projects like this almost always go over budget. So I would say, we could do a split, you know, figure $4,000 this year and $4,000 next year, something like that. I would allocate $8,000 for it as a budget item.
Mm-hmm.
The price will only go up in the future. It won't
Yeah.
probably go down.
Yeah, although, you know, we're sort of in the nonprofit world and some of these, and we're in a kind of a higher profile organization. So sometimes these kinds of companies like to have the association with a creative group like ours. So sometimes they'll give us a little break on their costs, but can't count on that. And then we'll be competing with other people who are trying to get similar services.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a feel for how much competition there is out there.
So if this is the only, it seems like that is the only outstanding budget item that can split the years or be moved probably. So I want to bring it back to the topic we tabled about an artist assistant for Clayton Street. That was in, I believe that was also September. Let me pull up those minutes. And what I have in the minutes from, let's see, is this all September? Yeah, was that we had spent $7,500 on the artist assistants in August for Rainbow Forest. And so I wonder if do we have an idea of what an artist assistant, whether it's one or I don't know how many, would be needed for that Clayton Street project? Because I'm just wondering if you know, there are these things like Arts and Community Awards and the Clayton Street that we really want to have happen in spring to some extent. Then should that website just be pushed to the next fiscal year so that we can ensure we can pay for all the things?
So for Eric, it would be one assistant. You know, we're in discussions about whether or not he's going to be working with the Clayton contractors that are, you know, working on the construction. So I don't know. We'll probably have a better idea when we have our fabrication set, you know, what's really going to be needed for the install. But, you know, again, that's something we can, if we only want to budget a certain amount, then we just have to set that amount and say, you know, maybe it's only, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 that we can allocate towards an assistant for that job. You know, these pieces aren't built on site. They're going to be fabricated and then just installed and bolted. And a lot of the install involves coring into the concrete, which is going to need, you know, some heavy duty machinery. So that's probably going to be the bulk of it. What exactly an assistant would be doing, if it was more something like planning or just being an extra set of hands on site. It's definitely not going to be as involved as Rainbow Forest, is my point, because they're, you know, fabricator is making the pieces and then they're going to be shipped down here and installed.
Right. And then do we have set anywhere a standard, I don't know what we use at Rainbow Forest, but sort of for the hourly amount, or is that by
Yes.
project? Okay, what is that?
Thus far, the precedent that we've set is $25 an hour for artist assistants. Um, that's the rate that we established for the hot quarter mural, and then we used that rate again, a couple of years later. I don't know if we want to address that amount and, adjust for inflation. Um, you know, that's at y'all's discretion, but that's what we've set kind of as our hourly rate.
So what we really need to to decide is whether to ask for more money for next FY
Right.
for the operating budget to include the website.
It sounds like that. If we are hoping to do another round of 2 at 2,000, which is the new amount we've been using since the Resiliency Awards for the Arts and Community Awards, that would bring it to where we could only do a partial project for the website anyway. So it sounds to me like that could just be better in next fiscal year. Is that something where we could still work on the call, but then none of the work, like the art, like the, we could still issue the request for qualifications or whatever the process is we're doing in, say, the next few months, but then the project itself doesn't have to happen and the payment doesn't have to be dispersed until, say, like the fall or, sometime in the next fiscal 22. That's right? Okay. So that wouldn't be a huge obstacle. Okay.
I think it would be probably better to have the payments later in the year because we'll have to do some upfront work,
Mm-hmm.
the website content-wise, and so that might take some time.
Okay. Well, then I guess I would like to make a motion to, if we need to make a motion, again, help me out if we need it. But I think I'd like to make a motion to move the website project to fiscal year 23 operating budget at between $5,000 and $10,000 for the project.
I would say to just go ahead and say 8,000.
At $8,000 for the project. There, that's my motion.
Okay, for FY 23, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
So that was B.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor? That's all our voting members. Thank you. Okay, so then the other, thanks for all the clarifications on that. I think that was a big question we've had for a while of when is that project going to happen and when are we going to pay for it? So let's just set aside the rest of any of this year's budget talk, this fiscal year's budget talk for now, and focus on the opportunities we have to increase the Arts and Community Awards. Another idea that's come up that Andrew suggested was the artist assistance. What we are doing, well, if we can match for fall and spring this year, it would be two $2,000 awards. So twice in our fiscal year would be 8,000 total. Is that right? Or is that 2 times 2,000 times 2 is, thank you, not a math person. So that's about 8,000 of our this year's fiscal budget. I went back and looked at what the numbers I could find from the past few years. That program, Arts and Community Awards, started as Arts and Community grants in 2016. I couldn't find 2017 numbers, but basically from 2016 through 2019, the awards were $1,500 each, and we would give out 2 or 3 awards in the whole year, and that was it. In 2020, before even the resiliency round, we increased the number of awards up to 5 and brought that, the number stayed the same at 1,500. And then it was so that's a total of 7,500. So it was, increasing by, 2 awards. So it's been kind of steadily like creeping up the number of awards, maybe the number of amounts. With the resiliency round, we were able to disperse 50 awards at 2,000 each for an even $100,000 that we had to work with. And then we wanted to keep that as our sort of precedent for, the minimum level for this award at 2,000. So that's why for the most recent round, we'll be issuing two $2,000 awards. And I would like to see if we can do that for the spring round, but we don't necessarily need to vote on that right now. And so what Andrew proposed, he proposed a few different things, and we can take it in any direction we want. But I think the more sort of the big leap, right, would be the proposal of 4 awards in one round at $5,000, and then do that twice in a year. So that would be a very big increase from what our current budget is, but still a lot less than our 2020 Arts and Resilience, the $100,000 round. So if we were to do 4 awards at $5,000 twice a year, that would be a $40,000 budget for that program. For some context, we always get more proposals than we can fund. It is difficult it's difficult, I think, sometimes to compare sort of like the individual sort of artist awards and then the nonprofit or other sort of organization or collective group-based awards. And just every time we have one of these meetings, and I've been in them for the past, almost 2 years, I think, in all of them, it's just always, I just wish we could fund more. And with a greater amount, we've already seen with just like the little more amount we have, we can fund bigger projects. It can involve more people. They can impact more people. And that's the whole point of what we're doing, is to bring art to the public. So I am definitely in favor of upping the awards. Does anybody have some comments or thoughts?
No, I agree with
I'm-
you.
Go ahead,
I'm just
Nikki.
agreeing with you.
I'm also agreeing. I definitely would think that before increased numbers, increased award, but definitely increase in both. But I think priority in amount of award is higher, because I think the quality of the product or organization of the product of the award, I think, is greater at a greater amount.
Yeah, and we
just
are.
want to remember that we need to consider our capacity to manage an increased number of projects. So I would tend to agree with raise the amount awarded more than to raise the number for right now.
Goes
Change
along, I think that goes along really nicely, dovetails nicely with having a full-time administrator on the staff. Now we can do more, we can administer more projects. And we do get more bang for the buck with, there's kind of an economy of scale with the increase in the award amount.
Yeah, and to just reiterate, these projects, they're not necessarily projects that, Tatiana is as devoting as much time to as like a SPLOST project or something, because they're really sort of satellite. Theoretically, yes.
Theoretically.
I know you have 5 or 15 or however many reports still outstanding from the last round, but anyway, but they're sort of satellite projects, right? They're like it's community activated and community led, and Tatiana is sort of facilitating on that back end with the contracts and stuff, but that's more or less it. I would say ask for both and see how it goes. But I agree. If we were going to pick one, I would say upping the amount versus upping the number. But I would say both, because one, almost all of the proposals we're getting, they're not going to cover the full budget anyway, which kind of, what effect does that have on whether the project will have the impact that we want? Because if we're not able to fund the full project or even like the majority of the budget, then is it more likely that won't be able to be executed as well, reach as many people? happen at all. I'm not sure. So I would, think that just for all the reasons Mickey said, we should up the amount. But then we also know that we're always getting more proposals than we can fund, and there's a community need. So if we can make that ask and make that happen, then I think that would be great. And four twice a year up from 2 twice a year isn't that big of a leap either. So that's my preference.
Right.
I wonder if we could take a look at the impact of the money that we've already put into the community awards and demonstrate that for every dollar we've spent, there was an X number of dollars that were leveraged, into the community.
Yeah, that's part of what, why we're gathering all the data with the reports, is in the hopes that we can create kind of like an infographic. We gave this amount of money, funded this amount of projects that reached X amount of audiences, involved this many partners, that sort of thing. Which is why we need them all. But, more or less to have something to say,
Yeah, so unfortunately those numbers aren't ready to present right now in order for us to make that budget ask.
So
Um,
I'm trying
yeah,
to
go ahead.
looking at his. So we're talking about possibly having 4 arts and community awards annually, split between twice a year.
So 8 total, yeah.
8
4 twice a year.
8 total.
Yeah,
8
total.
total.
That's
At,
how I understood it, right? He was suggesting 4 in fall and 4 in spring, so in one
Okay.
fiscal year it would be 8.
Yep,
and how much each?
5,000.
Okay. Well, then I make a motion that's what we include in the budget request.
I second Donna.
Yep. Good.
All in favor? That's all the voting members. So that passes as our recommendation. And now for the local artist assistance part of this. So we know that our precedent is $25 an hour. And I wonder if anyone can share, do we have a threshold budget-wise for how we would designate, oh, this project will get an artist assistant or not? Or is it more specific as the projects are developed and then we see what the needs are? I'm not sure which one would kind of come first, so then it's hard to think about how to predict how much we need for that.
I think we had talked about projects that were, was it over 50,000, I think? Does anyone else remember? I think it was, we discussed possibly making it over a certain, if the budget's over a certain amount. So the projects that we've done so far have been a $25,000 project and a $55,000 project where we had assistance. If we do Clayton, that's another $55,000 project. So maybe that's the threshold. But thus far, it's been kind of on a case-by-case basis, and the focus being on projects where the artist was not local, just because it's a way to have local artists still involved with the project.
And based on the timeline of the upcoming projects, Tatiana, do we know how many projects we might have in that sort of like hitting those categories?
So the Greenway 2 is the sites and types of art are pending approval from the mayor and commission. Once that's approved, we go and create the call, and we'll probably put it, I would say, at least 8 weeks lead time on that call. So it's probably going to be the selection for those projects would probably be what's that, like springtime ish. So that gets us kind of close to the end of the fiscal year.
And how much is that project?
So,
Probably.
Greenway 2 is total 55,000, so it's a small mural project that's 15,000, and then a $40,000 mural slash multimedia mural project that's larger. So, that small mural could probably be a local only call. So, I think the only one that would possibly need an assistant would maybe be that other one, and that's a 40,000 project. $40,000 project. So maybe that's the threshold, or you want to say 35. I don't know. Whatever. It's kind of up to
It
y'all.
helps to know what the project is to know if they need an assistant
Right,
or not.
right. So, like I said, this is going to either be a mural or multimedia mural. So it's either going to be just a traditional mural or a mural that also has some sculptural elements possibly suspended or added on.
So those are things that would be pretty site specific. I mean, probably created on site. So that
Right.
is a lot more likely to have an artist assistant than potentially the Clayton Street, like we were talking about, needing
Right.
specialist
Exactly.
construction equipment.
Yep.
And is that the only one that is realistically fiscal year 23?
Let's see. I would say probably. I think if our next ones are probably going to take us probably closer to the end of the fiscal year, just based on user group recommendations to getting approval from mayor and commission to then having a call and having the lead time of a call, which is usually about 8 weeks. So that's like 2 months for just a call. So I think
Yeah, so
the rest-
Tatiana, anything that it's basically 4 months from when we do a call to when the mayor and commission approve that. So work backwards. So if we don't know about it now, it won't be happening this fiscal year.
thank you. Thank you, Diana.
I think I was confused. So the Greenway 2 will happen in FY23.
Correct.
Okay.
We're getting approval for the type and location, or actually location of the art. And once we get that from mayor and commission, which is this cycle, then we can go out, Tatiana, and do the call.
Mhm.
And then that will be, 4 months from now. So it might be very early in fiscal year 23, but it won't probably be in 22.
Plus, the selection process takes a little while.
Right.
Scheduling the selection meeting, going through the process, and especially with this one, yeah, it's going to be 2 separate meetings. So,
And we have to add DOT into the approval too,
right,
for at least the mural on the retaining wall.
correct.
So what we're wanting to know now is if we want to include funds for an assistant in the FY23 request. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we're trying to figure out how many projects would realistically
Okay.
be eligible
So,
for that.
and at, you said it earlier, at $25 an hour, a top limit of what? We're asking for the
Right,
operating budget, so it doesn't necessarily have to be spent on this
right.
particular.
Just for the sake of precedent, for Rainbow Forest, we spent $7,500, but that was also for 2 assistants. I don't know if we'll have another project of that, but that's quite has a install quite that involved as that, with what we have planned with the immediate projects with them being murals. Even with the multimedia elements, I just don't think it's going to be as involved. I would say maybe top it out at 5,000, maybe.
At 5, did you say?
Yeah, that's, and that's
So-
just a guess.
so then you would have maybe more to play with than not. Yeah, and just I think I did the math correctly. $1,000 is 40 hours, so ish a week of work.
Mhm.
So times 5 would be 5 weeks of work. And the other projects I'm looking at that I'm wondering maybe I'm not sure of the budget. I don't have like a budget spreadsheet in front of me.
Sure.
But they're probably further off. So something like the Classic Center Arena, I'm sure that's a higher budget, but that's probably further off than
Right,
fiscal
and
year.
we don't know how many projects, individual projects we're gonna have with that budget. Just what we have so far in discussion, that's that it's gonna be at least 2 projects coming out of that budget. That's what it's like, 348,000. But that's gonna be broken down into maybe 2, if not more projects. So it's hard to say kind of what those individual project budgets will look like if we were to say have 4 or 5 different projects for the arena. You know, where it's too early to say.
It's too early, right? Because we don't know if
Right.
that
We've
could
had
even
one
happen next year.
initial user group meeting, um, just to kind of share ideas, but yeah.
Does anybody think 5 is too high, too low?
It's not too high.
All right. Well, any other discussion around that?
Need a motion.
Right. Yep. Okay. No other input. All right. B, do you want to make a motion?
I move
So,
that.
so
Oh,
I have a
there you go.
question before you guys go into that.
Yeah.
Costa, where, I don't have a,
Yeah.
what do you
That's
think on
30
Costa?
$35,000 budget.
I know, when
um,
do you think that's gonna
oh,
happen?
The project itself or the
You
call
think that's
or
23 or 24?
I would say that
I
would
mean, they've got
probably
a
be 23.
contractor on site.
I
Right?
mean, I think the call would be fiscal year 23. I don't know when the actual install will take place.
That might be something else to maybe add in.
Because that one's further in the process. So I guess that's 2 things, right? Both of these are below the potentially cap we had set for 50,000 of having
Yeah.
artist assistants. I think I would like to see where we made that motion, and I'm not sure where that we could find that. But it sounds to me like more so than just the budget, it's also just the art activity that's happening on site that is, an important thing to think about, and whether we or not we have one. So, I would
Well, and
Yeah,
I don't,
just
I
to
don't think,
clarify, I don't think anyone voted on the threshold for artist assistant in terms of,
Great.
I think it was just a discussion point.
Great.
Yeah.
we want to
So-
lose sight either that the main reason why we were looking at artist assistants was because we were getting so many non-local artists that were getting the awards, getting the projects. And so to sort of ameliorate that, we decided having a local artist partner with them would be a good situation. So I think we should still kind of keep that as a main criteria for when we have an artist assistant involved.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more so than the dollar or the project cost. But just a thought.
Mm-hmm. And it is also a good development opportunity for artists who aren't ready to do their own full-scale SPLAST proposal, and they can learn more about the process and what the actual hours of the day are like, and whether that or not that's something they would want to do in the long term. So
And just the networking possibilities and
totally. So yeah, our 3 sort of criteria we've talked about, not set in stone, not voting on it, but a higher budget, or let's say a non-local artist, and then sort of the art activities that need to happen on site. So yeah, does somebody want to make a motion?
I mean, and maybe another way of looking at this is, can the project be a learning environment for younger artists or up and coming artists? How much how much of a learning opportunity are some of these projects for our artists? Some of them may not be. I'm not even sure Clayton is really that suited, just because it's going to be already fabricated and it's just an installation thing. There's kind of a limited learning opportunity. Some, but I don't know.
Right. So looking at that filter, that might open up some more of the projects to having an artist assistant. Let's see. And I know Rainbow Forest was kind of a special case because the days were really long. Do we know how many weeks that install, like the duration of the installation? Because I'm wondering
For which?
for the Rainbow Forest where we had the
Oh,
artist
it was 3
installation.
weeks. 3
It was
weeks.
3, right? Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Mhm. Hot Corner was 2 weeks on site.
So potentially the Greenway mural, at least the larger mural, that would likely take at least 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, I would say easily. But
Easily.
again, I cannot, I really can't predict some of these things.
I know.
Stuff happens like
Hmm.
Weather, yes.
weather happens.
Or anything, or
Anything,
pandemics, or
right,
anything.
exactly.
I mean, a lot of,
Uncertainties.
yeah.
So
But-
how would we feel about maybe raising that a little to, I guess, close to what we have already spent this year, maybe 8,000? That would be about 8 weeks between all the different projects.
We don't have to spend it.
This is just an
Yeah.
ask.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, well then I would like to make a motion to do that. To recommend, I guess, or ask 8,000 for local artist assistants for SPLOST projects in fiscal year 23.
And I guess I don't know who's going to put this document together.
Andrew and Darcy, I think.
But you might put for artist assistants and incidentals or make it easier to spend the money as it's needed.
Sure. Please add that to the motion. So, yeah. Can I get a second we have 8,000 for local artist assistants and incidentals around those projects for fiscal year 23?
I'll
I'll
second.
Either Victoria or Helen, Donna.
Okay.
And all in favor? I think that's everyone but B. Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, and B.
Good.
Everybody. All right. All the voting members are in favor of that. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up around that, the operating budget for next year, unless anybody else has any other things they think might need to fit in, we might need to make an ask for. It's something that it might not have to come out of the operating budget, but I was just doing some fact finding around it today, and I messaged Tatiana about it, and we're going to find out a little more about it this week. But we've talked a few times, and it's recommended in the Public Art Master Plan about for some projects it might be more appropriate and sort of just following better practices to do an RFQ instead of an RFP up front and getting all the proposals that those artists aren't getting compensated for. So the RFQ is a little more artist friendly in that we're already looking at their work, and then it's a next step of inviting them to submit a proposal. They get paid for it, so then it's just a lot more accessible to a lot more artists. And so I was thinking about this in terms of operating budget, thinking if that is a service or labor, that would make sense to come from the operating budget. But the fact finding around it that we want to do is Tatiana said we've done this once before with the Clayton Street project, and so we need to do some fact finding around where those funds came from. Was it our operating budget before? Was it somehow connected to the SPLOST Project 21 or something else like that? And if there's another better source than the operating budget, then great. And we haven't necessarily identified that we're going to do that this year, but I just think it's probably the time to talk about it and prepare if we do want to do it.
What kind of expenditures are we talking about?
So Donna, this would be if we were to do an RFQ, a request for qualifications, as opposed to a request for proposals where we would select finalists, let's say 3 or 4 finalists whose previous work we like, and then pay them a small amount of money to create a proposal to the specifications of the project. So this way, as opposed to doing a proposal kind of speculatively, artists put a lot of work into those proposals without even getting paid, just in the hopes that they get selected.
Right.
So this is sort of a way to compensate artists for their time, at least in a small amount. So the previous project where we did this was Clayton. I can't recall if it was 3 or 4 finalists. I think it was 4. And then we paid them each $500. So not a huge amount, but enough to kind of make it worth their time. And they put together a proposal, and then the selection panel, and went back to the selection panel to then make the final selection of the proposal.
So yeah, it might not make sense to vote on it tonight because we do need to do some more fact finding around when we did this before. Was it from our capital budget? Was it from a SPLOST or Project 21 or some other budget? And even just see are there any upcoming projects that would make sense for? We're not sure yet, but I just wanted to bring that up here. Is there anything else we should talk about around fiscal year 23 budget? Anybody? All right, so Darcy's not here, so we're going to skip past the treasurer's report. So we have project report. I'll give a quick update on Arts and Community Awards and outreach. And then we should probably wrap it up after that. So, Tatiana, do you want to lead the project report?
Sure. So like we mentioned, Clayton Street is kind of in the schematic stage still, getting ready to fabricate, and then install is planned for hopefully April of this year. And I want to just say a special congrats to Diana, because I saw on social media that the trees are going in on Clayton, and if you've been following along, the trees have been a big deal through this whole process, the removal of the trees, and now the trees are returning. So
So,
that's very exciting.
so with this round of tree installs, we'll have 45, I think, of the 96 that will be installed. So, yay.
That's so exciting.
So yeah, we're really getting close to the end of that project, and it's already starting to look a lot different.
Alive. It's starting to.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, Cooperative Extension, we had our dedication ceremony on Saturday, and that was great way to wrap that up. That was a long time project. So that is done. Poet Laureate, we we had an event in December at the Linen House. And of course, right now, event planning is a little tricky again. We, did not anticipate that we'd have another January that was like last January, but here we are. So hopefully by April, which is Poetry Month, we'll be able to do some fun in-person events with the Poet Laureate. So fingers crossed, and please feel free to share any ideas you have for that. But Jeff is really great at coming up with his own programming, and he's got a lot of great ideas. Greenway 2, like I mentioned, the sites that were selected with ACAC folks and our user group are now being are ready for Mayor and Commission approval. So if goes according to plan, we can go on to the call phase and then, go to selection and so on. Firefly 2, we need to have a follow-up with that user group. Same thing with cost of building. They met back in, what was that, November? So we have another follow-up meeting to happen possibly sometime this month. So I'll keep everyone posted. With the arena, that user group met December 15th. We had a really great discussion. And kind of one of the big things that were discussed was, of course, how many projects and kind of what budgets would those projects look like, which is kind of a new layer of a challenge. So not just having, a single budget to work with for a project, but something that could possibly be broken up into many projects. So that conversation is still ongoing with that user group. Affordable housing is going to meet later this week, January 13th, for their next round of discussion. Those of you in that group should have received an invite to that meeting. And pianos, the piano at the library is going to be tuned hopefully in the next week or so. I've been in touch with the piano tuner, and Marissa Mustard we're paying her a small amount to touch up that piano because that one's kind of in better shape than the Bishop Park piano, which is going to have to be decommissioned. Music Walk of Fame committee is meeting January 16th to discuss the third round of plaques for the Walk of Fame. So that's exciting. And of course, we're selecting 5 each year. So that's going to be another 5 that committee will be selecting.
Tatiana, is that the same selection group every time? Okay.
So yeah, that's the mayor approves that group, and each year we ask him if he wants to sort of add drop anyone. And so far we've had the same committee. So
okay.
And then yeah, and Hawthorne intersection, we need to schedule a user group meeting for that one. And that's the user group that we kind of put together ourselves because that project doesn't have a user group. So I have a list of folks and business owners in the area along with our ACAC members.
Yeah, Tatiana, I need to circle up with you about that. So I will do that.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, any questions about that? Did I forget anything?
The only thing I'd add is that we did receive Andrew Kovac's final report and we've approved his final invoice. So it's all good there.
Yeah, so the only project that's wrapped that doesn't have their final report in is Origins, and that we should have that soon from David and the guys, and then that will be officially wrapped.
Awesome. That's a lot of projects for 1 year.
So I would say that Tatiana has done a Herculean effort in getting all of these things to the finish line. Kudos.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Thanks,
Indeed.
y'all.
Yes, on top of managing what our next topic is, Arts and Community Awards. So for just closing the loop on the resilience round, yeah, we still have 15 reports outstanding unless that's been updated since.
I think it's 14 now.
Great. And most of them are from my group, so I've already emailed them. So that's
And
on
a
me.
lot of those too are projects that I know that were done. I would say half the ones on that list are projects that I know, like I saw them. I was either there or I saw them and I know they're finished. They just haven't given us the data. So, and some have been in touch with me and some haven't. So, if there's any question on who's been in touch, but yeah, there's a couple people that are kind of ghosted.
Yes, if you haven't reached out to, there's a central document where everybody can view the projects that.
Yeah, I think
reports that haven't
everyone
come
has a
out, right?
link to that spreadsheet that I sent you, Madeline, that has the,
Perfect.
yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I just checked that and I contacted all of my folks. So if you haven't done that, don't forget to do it. So for this round, we're back to just 2 awards, $2,000, and we got 10 applications, 8 were eligible. But we, our committee met, and it was, I think, all new members and myself, and plus Jen. So it was Ezra and Victoria and Serena and Jan and myself. Were the subcommittee for that, and we met. We used our scoring framework that we developed last year. I guess it was last year, from adapting what the Georgia Council for the Arts does, just making it a better, more repeatable process. It makes it a lot faster than it used to be, and we use that to be able to come up with feedback to share with every applicant, because we really want it to be a learning opportunity, even if people can't get funded this time necessarily. So so I took the feedback that we came up with as a group and I put it in sort of a SWOT analysis of strength, weakness, opportunity. I left off the T for threat. I didn't think that was necessary, but yeah, so that feedback should be ready to go to all the applicants. And then after everybody's notified, we can talk about the projects that that we selected maybe next month. Can't talk about it yet here. So I think that is it for that. The next award cycle, yeah, that was a note on here. Like I said earlier, we ideally would like to do another round. We want to do another round in the spring, but it's kind of how many awards can we distribute. I think we can definitely do 1, and we can probably do 2, especially since we would like the website to be moved to next year's budget. So I think ideally the timeline would be approve that today or next month. That expense, we might want to wait till next month just to get a budget report from Darcy, and just make sure we're not overlooking anything or forgetting anything. And then we have a pretty step and repeat process now that we've done so many updates to the call and the process. So it should be ready to publish, just same thing we did, and have it open for at least a month pretty soon after that. But I do think we should probably wait to review the budget, the actual report next month. Does that sound good to everybody? We would still be far ahead of the timeline that we might otherwise be. So I think we will be good for time if we talk about it next month.
You want to pick a different theme?
So
for
last
the
time,
next run, or would it
yeah,
keep the same theme? And for like, how
that's a
would that
good
work?
that's a good question. So last time we talked about it. This is the first time I believe we've done a theme following the resilience round as a theme. And I'd like to hear from the other folks on the subcommittee now what you thought of the theme and what you thought of people's interpretations. Because we did discuss last time we approved the theme as a group. We said, okay, well, let's definitely commit to a theme this time and not necessarily a theme every time. So I don't think we're.
We haven't seen how they responded to it.
You have not seen, I guess. But Esther and Victoria, I guess, and Serena's not here, but we all read, and Jan, we all read the applications.
I could say for my part, I
Sure.
thought having a theme worked really well. It gave a little bit of a coherence to what we were looking at, and seeing different kinds of interpretations and different kinds of innovative energy being brought to a theme that kind of grounded us, but also allowed us to look for different kinds of connotations or interpretations of that theme. So I thought it worked really well. When we were, and I don't think it was restrictive in the sense that everybody was able to talk about what they wanted to do and how that relates to the theme as well.
Is this something we have to decide tonight?
Not necessarily, but it's good to bring up because I think we will need to talk about it and make decisions probably next month. Yeah, we'll need to get it ready for next month, but and so maybe we can talk a little bit more about, I guess, how the proposals work together. But I think the value of a theme and what we talked about for wanting to have a theme at all is not only for like just the opposite, or I guess like a healthy restriction, right? Just giving a creative parameter for of all the things that an artist could do or an arts organization could do. How can we channel it together to really tell a story with our town and with our place and with our time? And I think the proposals that we're able to fund this time, and the ones that we're not able to fund, unfortunately, but I think they're going to work together really well, and I think it's really going to help. I think it's really going to help with the public impact side of this, because people will be able to see, oh, these are connected. This is sort of like what I'm, just kind of looking at it almost like a narrative, even though they are different, separate projects. I think that's kind of part of the idea behind it, to be able to, make that easier for the public to understand and see that these are related, and see that, just have it marked kind of time and place. So I do think if we're gonna do a theme at all, I would probably say it would make sense to do the same theme for the spring round. I don't know if it would be a little bit of whiplash if we did a whole new theme. That's just my gut right now, but again, we don't have to decide tonight, but we will need to think about it. And if you have other ideas, or if we don't want to do a theme, we probably need to be ready to talk about it and vote on it next month. Does that sound good? Super brief outreach team report. We have not met yet this month. We will meet next Wednesday. If anybody wants to join, just email me and I'll add you to the invite list. But just to recap what we've been up to, we've had, I guess, 1 or 2 official meetings as our new outreach team, and it's been going great. And we did some tabling, I think 2 different tabling events in December. And we came up with, just to tell everybody, I wish I had a picture to show you. I will definitely need to email the group. But we wanted to use a tabling opportunity at places where we already knew there would be a crowd there ready to engage with. And we wanted to use it as not just information, but engaging through activities. So we came up with an activity board that had a number of projects, recent projects over the last 5-ish years of ACAC, had a map on the center of sort of a trifold. And then we had pictures and clues corresponding to, here's Rainbow Forest, here's the Walk of Fame, here's some other projects. And so we would remove the pictures, put them on the table, and then folks would come over and put the clues together, put the words and pictures together. And then we didn't have a prize, so we just gave them a nod and pride and a clap. That's all we had. But it was really cool. It was really cool to see. I hadn't gotten to do any outreach really with ACAC since everything has really been shut down in the last year. So in that time of like having holiday markets and the parade of lights and stuff, that those are some of the events that we tabled at. It was just great to see people engage with it. And I was shocked how many kids came up and were able to say, oh, I know exactly where Origins is. I drive by that. And we hadn't even done the unveiling yet. So it was just really cool. And we're excited to see what else we can do through, engaging through activity, I think, at future outreach opportunities. So yes, Serena and Helen, thank you guys so much for helping with those tabling events, and Tatiana, thanks for getting the banner and the QR code and all that together. And I need to get that back to you along with the extra printouts we have. So so that's pretty much it for outreach so far. Again, our next meeting is this coming Wednesday. If you want to join that, I would love to have you talk about outreach and what we can do. Not to put Victoria or anyone on the spot, but if we do want to share a little bit about the strategy team, I missed the most recent meeting, and I figured it would be nice to talk about the retreat planning, early planning process, but just talk about what that will be in case you missed the email.
So I'll just chime in, and then anyone else who is on that. So we're looking to do a retreat. And I think B and I are sort of charged with trying to find a facilitator for that. We have some ideas. If you have other ideas of facilitators you've worked with around here or elsewhere, let us know. We're trying to put together some plans. But what we came up with was just to at least begin to engage this group in a conversation about what you would be looking for in a retreat. What kind of things would you hope to accomplish at a retreat? We had a lot of different ideas, and then realized we need to hyper focus on the purpose and make sure we're getting feedback from everyone. So Andrew did send out a little Google survey. It's anonymous, be candid. and we will bring those results back to this team and kind of share where we think we've landed. There's some just kind of big picture, what do you hope to gain from a retreat, and then some logistics, half day, full day, in person, virtual, blah blah blah. You know, we're living in strange times, so we'll be flexible to that. But if I think we've had 6, I checked it a little bit before this meeting. I think we've had 6 folks respond already. So thank you for responding. And if you haven't had a chance, please do, and we'll make sure to present all of those survey findings and use them. If you have questions about that.
Great.
Great, that's
We've
gonna
been
be,
wanting a
go ahead.
retreat for a long time now, and so it's certainly an opportunity for us to celebrate our 10 years in existence. So a past, present, and future opportunity to lend some content, some wishes and thoughts and ideas to that is, I think, contextual to what this retreat might offer us. So please do send in your results so we can use those to formulate some conversational issues with prospective facilitators. And of course, I know, Madeline, you are in on that one too because of your input with Giant. Seems to be a really great organization. So stay tuned, folks. That's it.
Yes, yeah, Giant is a something we could have the opportunity to add on to the retreat or do it as a separate thing. And I can send out some information about that. But just a really great sort of leadership. It is a leadership training program that I know Stephanie has gone through a session, and some other art colleagues in town connected through my work. And it's just great. It's just a great, really great way to learn how to communicate best with yourself and with the people you work with. So we have an opportunity to do a training session at no cost, which would be great. So we'll see when we can make that work. All right, and anything else, anybody? We have our upcoming events. Anybody want to report out on? I see Dee Dee put some great stuff in the chat.
Something in chat about the upcoming, what is it? What did she say?
Last week to view the winter shows, Guest by POC exhibition curated by Maria Elias, and a new show by Gwendolyn Payton on view. And 47th juried exhibition submissions are open, many exclamation points. Very exciting. That's great. Can't wait to see it. At Creature Comforts, we have a show by Renee Shoemaker, who she's just about to go back to France. What a life. But so she spends half time here, half time in France. So, but we have a show that will remain on view, even though she's going back to France for another couple months, if you want to, or yeah, another month and a half, if you want to check it out.
I hung a show of Ellie Saragosi's work at the library last week, so that'll be up till March. Really fun stuff. I'm sure you might remember Ellie. She was one of our artist assistants, and she did the art on the pop-up park. She's very popular, but very great stuff.
Awesome. Well, if that is it, I think that concludes our meeting. Ending early so we can all go watch the dogs. So either today will be a victory, or it will be the beginning of a new year of hoping. Let's say, I don't know. I'm not much of a football person, so someone else might need to make our ending speech here.
Can't help you.
Just kidding. Yeah, we're art people. Yep. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much.
It's good to see everyone.